Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm happy to be here with you. Getting near the end of the week, and I've been talking about faith. And I have another scripture to share with you today. I'd like to read it first. It's from the 17th chapter of Luke, and just two verses, beginning with verse 5. The apostle said to the Lord, "Show us how to increase our faith." And the Lord answered, "If you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry bush, 'May you be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you." Well, I guess I have myself in a pickle this morning because I've chosen a verse that's really hard to understand. And I'm not sure I completely understand it, but I'll journey today with you and see if we can't make some sense out of this. This story, these verses happen later in Jesus' ministry. The disciples have been around for the whole time. They've seen things they've never seen. They've heard words they've never heard. And they've come to realize that this man, Jesus, is much, much more than just a man. And so here he's talked about, just before this, some things about belief. And so the disciples say to the Lord, "Show us how to increase our faith." Now, I think that's a request that you and I can identify with. Whether you have a little bit of faith or a lot of faith, you can always use more. Whether you feel that your life is okay and your faith tank is well filled, or whether you think it's empty, there's always room to put a little more in it. So they say, how do we increase our faith? So in response to that, Jesus gives this answer that if you were one of the apostles, you'd be sitting there thinking, what? Hey, let me read it again. If you had faith, even as small as a mustard seed. Now, how small is a mustard seed? We don't plant mustard seeds necessarily anymore, but I can tell you they're one of the smallest seeds around. Maybe the size of a pinhead. There's not much there, but they grow into something marvelous and magnificent, even though it's really tiny. So he says, if you just had that much faith, then you could say to the mulberry tree, "May you be uprooted and planted in the sea," and it would obey. Can you imagine walking up to a mulberry bush or any other bush and saying to the bush, "Go cast yourself into the sea," and sit there and watch it do it? I mean, golly, that would be strange. But he's not really talking about moving mulberry bushes. He's talking about the power of faith and the power that even a small amount of faith has. See, the disciples want more faith. I don't blame them. I want more faith. And I've been at this a long time. Of course, I want more. Situations change, life goes on, things happen I hadn't even envisioned before. And I want faith to figure out how to live through it. So, what does Jesus say? Well, you don't really need that much faith. So, how much do you need? Well, according to Jesus, a really small part. But having that small part is critical because I think a lot of people who claim to have faith may only have faith when things work out the way they want. See, it's easy to believe in God when you ask for something and you get it right away. It's easy to believe God when you've asked and prayed with Him and you've lived a decent life and things are going pretty good. It's not hard to believe that. But what happens when some or none of that occurs? How do you strengthen your faith? Well, here's what I came to a long time ago. We had a child that was supposed to have been born severely handicapped. Now, it didn't happen, but the doctors thought it was going to happen. And I decided that I had really two options. I could trust God to work a miracle. And if he didn't, I don't know what I was going to do next. Or I could trust God to be God, knowing that somehow, some way, my son would be born and would live a whole life. Now, I got criticized for that. I was told I didn't have much faith. But you know what? In times like that, I had all the faith I could come up with. And when you're facing an obstacle that seems insurmountable, it's hard to hang on to any faith. The point being, I don't have to hang on to much. I just have to believe and trust God. See, that's the key to faith. Trusting God. And trusting God is dependent on knowing that he cares for us. Remember the definition. It's the evidence of things unseen. You have to believe that God cares, that he rewards those that seek him, and that he's in charge. And with that little faith, you can apply it to anything. So when the disciples say, show us how to increase our faith, Jesus does. It's almost as if he's saying, it doesn't come by mountains. It comes by little actions every time something happens. And accepting that God is in control. And I guarantee you, by the end of time, God's going to be in control. So I hope today you'll look at your life and think about faith. Don't beat yourself over the head if you're struggling. Heck, the disciples were struggling. I struggled. Everybody I know has struggled. But what's important is, what do you do in the midst of that struggle? You keep trusting God. That's what faith is. And I hope today that your life is filled with that little bit of idea. Well, thanks for listening. I got one more this week. And I just hope you have a really special day. If you have a need or something we can help you with, let us know. We'll do that as fast as we can, if we can do it. So until tomorrow, God bless you. I'll talk to you again.